So let's talk about what is a Zen monk, what is a Zen nun, what is a Zen teacher, what are the differences, what do we do? Most people have no idea and make a lot of presumptions in my experience. Presumption number one, that every Zen monk or Zen nun that you meet is a Zen teacher. That is not true. Even if they run a temple, that is not true. Not everyone running a temple is qualified to be teaching Zen. Many people who run Zen temples or Zen centers are actually just group leaders, or they are qualified to hold funeral services, memorial services, things like that, but not teach Zen. That's a little bit different. Zen teachers are people who have trained for many years, have gone through the system of learning how to, of training. They've first started not with the intention of becoming a Zen teacher. I don't think of anybody who starts with the intention of becoming a Zen teacher. So that's quite a little bit different to, you can meet people who say, well, I want to say to themselves, I want to be a yoga teacher. And they'll sign up to some yoga teacher's course. There is no Zen teacher's course to sign up to. Certainly not in Rinzai Zen anyway. Not in real Zen. There are people who people who sometimes become group teachers are usually people who've been sitting for themselves, concentrating on what they are doing for many years before they become a group leader as a lay person. Many monks and nuns are sitting for many, many years before they are entrusted to any sort of responsibility over other people. So you could think of it like somewhat like taking up a doctorate at university or a master's at university, for sort of minimum requirement of half a dozen to a dozen years before you are in any way responsible for teaching someone else. So what do Zen monks and Zen nuns do mostly, if they're not automatically Zen masters teaching, as people seem to often think we are? Well, we sit zazen. You're working on yourself. A person who is a Zen monk or Zen nun who has taken ordination to become a Zen monk or Zen nun hasn't taken ordination to finish something. They've taken ordination to start something, which is a sort of higher level of training, if you like. But when I say high level of training, be careful of how to understand that, because sometimes people think, oh, higher level of training, therefore they must be some sort of higher person. No, not necessarily so. If that is so, then that is the result of many, many years of the person working on themselves. It is certainly not the result of someone doing an ordination ritual at a temple. Yeah, that does not confer you to be some sort of higher person. It just means that you have said, you have undertaken that you will work on yourself in a very serious way, and you will put everything else aside to do that. A doctor, obviously they go to medical school. They don't go to the beach to get a qualification to become a doctor. They go to medical school to get a qualification to be a doctor, and it's many years of hard study to become a doctor. A Zen nun or Zen monk has committed themselves to doing many years of study for themselves. First of all, primarily for themselves, to straighten themselves out. And not everybody has to do that. Lay people, just because you will come to the Zen temple does not mean you have to automatically become a Zen monk or a Zen nun. Strangely, I've had that question, like, if I come to the Zen temple, will I have to shave my head and become a nun? Will I have to shave my head and become a monk? I'm not sure where people get that sort of question line from, but the answer is absolutely no. In fact, we do all we can to discourage you from it. It must be the only spiritual tradition where you are actually discouraged, as hard as you can possibly be discouraged from wanting to do this. And only when you have absolutely convinced your teacher that you need to do this for all the fabric of your being, are you then considered, will your teacher possibly either ordain you or help you get ordained, depending on the situation. This must be one of the few spiritual traditions I know that would take that sort of stance with people. Most want to, recruit people in and make as many Indian chiefs as possible, etc. And no, that's not Zen. There should be very few Indian chiefs, and there should be only those people who are properly qualified to be so. The yoga girl at the park saying that she's running a Zen group is probably not that person. It probably has some strange ideas and should probably be stayed away from. The business guy who thinks he's going to appropriate this tradition so that he can set up some sort of Zen business should be stayed away from. Those sorts of people are not Zen teachers. They're not even vaguely involved in practicing Zen if that's their mindset. Becoming a Zen teacher is a long, long, hard road of polishing yourself, of immersing yourself in the tradition, of immersing yourself in self-inquiry and refining yourself. And you can see some of my other videos where I talk about shugyo, this word shugyo, refining yourself. So that's what a Zen monk and a Zen nun really do. Hopefully after years of doing that, they might become responsible on some level. Perhaps running a centre, maybe being a group leader, and if they really are at, the right stuff, then maybe they will become Zen teachers. Lay people, it's even a longer trip as a lay person, because it's not something that you do 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week, being immersed in this tradition. So as a lay person, it's a much longer road. But lay people, can and should practice Zen, so long as you're not practicing towards the idea of a reward. That's not really a thing. The more you are thinking about a reward at the end of this, or a reward in some some time, maybe next year or something like this, or next week or next month or something like that. The more you're doing that, the more you're putting yourself further and further and further away from what you're trying to do. You really have to just come, do the training, immerse yourself selflessly, work on your selflessness, work on not seeing yourself as the center of the universe, and not seeing the universe as something that's set up to reward you, to reward yourself. That's what you're doing in Zen. That's what we are doing. That's what we are doing. That's what we are trying to live. And there are many ways to do that. We sit zazen. There are people who are connected to Zen through tea tradition. There are people who are connected to Zen through Budo, martial arts. There are lots and lots of different cultural ways in which to connect yourself to Zen practice and to Zen training. But fundamentally, the two constants, regardless of how else you practice Zen, is having a teacher, a Zen teacher, and doing Zazen. Having access to interviews with that Zen teacher and doing Zazen. Otherwise, So that's Zen in a nutshell. Easier to tell you in 15 minutes or so what Zen is than to do it. In the meantime, if you would like to like, subscribe and share to this channel and consider supporting it, you'll find links in the description, and thank you very much.